If you have any lessons, or if you have any questions throughout the session, go ahead and drop them in the chat for me. You can also politely interrupt me if you need to. Just unmute yourself. You have that option. Okay, so tonight's lesson is on emotional and psychological analysis. It's lesson 1 in a series of many. I wanted to open up this lesson by using a quote from Mark Douglas. If you're unfamiliar with Mark Douglas, he's a really wonderful author of so many popular trading books, such as The Way of the Turtle, Disciplined Trader, and Trading in the Zone. We have some of those books available for you for free in Academy resources, or you can even go to YouTube if you're interested in listening to them while you do something else like working out or commuting to work. And Mark Douglas, one of the big things that he pushes, and he's one of the few trading authors who actually touches on the topic of emotional analysis and irrationalities and things, but he says that if you can create a state of mind that is not affected by the market's behavior, the struggle will cease to exist. And the whole point of that is to recognize that the power and the control are within your mind, your thoughts, and your perceptions, rather than having the market have control over you. So full disclaimer, everything I share in my lessons are not meant to be taken as financial advice or to replace professional advice or help if that's something you need, but I do my best to provide and relate everything back to trading. So let's go ahead and get started. A purpose. Why on this trading server are you receiving an Academy lesson about something like emotions? Well, first and foremost, if you've been through our Fundamentals of a Trader series that Stefan teaches, trading is 10% fundamental analysis, 10% technical analysis, 10% trend analysis, 10% risk exposure and capital management, 20% price action, and 40% emotional analysis. So the majority of your trading decisions are actually coming from a subconscious or an emotional place. So it's just as important to address that topic as it is to address the other topics like how to do technical analysis or how to properly manage your risk and capital exposure, etc. So it's important to also understand the correlation between your habits and your emotions and your trading P&L, because most profitable habits are derived from unhealthy emotions like fear, greed, scarcity, overwhelm, boredom, or impatience, while most profitable trading habits and your greatest P&L will come when you're in the mindset of healthy emotions such as satisfaction, curiosity, at a healthy neutral baseline, remaining fluid, stability, courage, and open-mindedness, right? Remember, we always come into trades with the mindset of curiosity. How much am I willing to lose, or I'm curious about how much I can make. So next is the biggest misconception that traders have is that they do not have, sorry, y'all, I had a phone call coming through. All right, the biggest misconception traders have is that they do not have control over their emotions. So before you enter any trading session, something you should do is you need to have a self-awareness check-in with yourself. Do you have control over your emotions, or do your emotions have control over you? One thing we talk about on the podcast on the X-Trade side a lot is, and people have heard me say this in here as well, is making sure that you aren't trading under the influence. If you're familiar with the DUIs or driving under the influence, or if you're one of our Aussie homies joining us, they call it drink driving. I don't know if it's like that in the UK as well. You guys can tell me that, but you want to make sure that you are not trading when you are emotionally impaired, because this can significantly impact your judgment, whether you think so or recognize that on a logical standpoint. Remember that a lot of times your emotions are not rational, they're not logical. So you need to chickadee check yourself before you wreck yourself, because if you can't control your emotions, you can't control your money. This is the main reason why we're doing this lesson and why we're starting this series, because if you can't control your emotions, you can't control your money. Better check yourself, people. Better recognize, as Stefan likes to say. Yes. All right. So before we get into it, let's all make sure that we're on the same page about what emotions even are. Emotions are actually a very natural feature of your body. They're instinctive and intuitive. So they come from your stomach. That's why when people say trust your gut, right? Emotions are natural, instinctive, or intuitive states of mind deriving from somebody's circumstances, somebody's mood, or their relationship with others. But in order to understand the processes that we're going to be teaching in this emotional lesson series, let's break down and actually look at the words that you've been using to understand where they came from and what they mean. So the E in emotion is really for energy in motion. So I want you to think about your mindset and your body being like a tree. When a tree breathes in and takes in carbon dioxide, it outputs oxygen. So your emotions that you're feeling, they need to be going somewhere like outside of yourself, transmuting into oxygen or processed and then released in order for that energy to remain in motion, emotion, right? What are some things we do with our emotions? We can express them, we can repress them, we can depress them or feel depressed or repressed or be expressive. So what happens if the energy is never put into motion? If you aren't expressing emotions, that means you aren't putting them out or putting them away, right? If you are repressing emotion, you are stuck in analysis paralysis, feeling or thinking the same things over and over again. Repressing your emotions is keeping them back from others or thinking over them or experiencing them again and again. In depress means to push down. D is down, or to not exert pressure on. So if you're feeling depressed, you are actually actively pushing down or suppressing. That's another one you can do because S and D. Suppress your emotions. All right. So what happens if your energy is never output, if you do not express your energy or your state of mind? First of all, if you're in that repressive state and you're doing nothing, you're going to have some stagnant energy. Think about a pool of water and how a river is flowing, the ocean is moving, but a stagnant, like a swamp or a lake that's covered in too much algae or lily pads and stuff, it's stagnant, right? It's collecting mosquitoes, it's not moving, it's not going anywhere. That's kind of a reflection of your emotional state and your P&L. If you're stagnant, if you aren't willing to do anything with any of the energy that comes into your life, you are likely not going to be making any gains. You might think of yourself as, when you're sidelining yourself too much, that I'm not losing any money, but you're also not exposing yourself to the possibility of gains, right? No pain, no gain, no risk, no reward. If you are bottling up or suppressing your emotions, what's going to happen is, and look at these words again, we have the Latin prefixes here, ex and im, so outside and inside. If you're bottling up or suppressing your emotions, you will eventually explode or implode, likely on people or circumstances that don't deserve it. So when it comes to your trading emotional state or things that can happen throughout your trading day, if you have recognized that your trading experiences have begun to impact other areas of your life because you are exploding on other people, or you are not processing your emotions, aka your emotions, your energy has no motion to it, it's staying with you, it's actually going to implode onto you, which feels like internal conflict. It feels like the crushing, like the monkey on your back, right? So if you think that you're saving other people by not lashing out and putting it on them, putting it on yourself is just as bad. And that's something you want to avoid, because what can lead to, or what behaviors implosion and your stagnant energy can lead to, are doing things that can be unhealthy for you, such as trying to turn off your emotions by numbing yourself in some capacity. This could be using unhealthy substances, overindulging, the burying your head in the sand concept. And when it comes to making a decision, there's wrong, there's right, and then there's no decision. And people who tend not to make a decision are actually, whether they realize it or not, making a decision. No decision is a decision, just like the phrase no response is a response. Somebody's actions are telling you all that you need to know, right? So when you are not making a choice, when you are choosing to implode or keep your energy stagnant, you are still in. Sorry, I'm getting some feedback here. Seemel, just going to mute you. Yeah, so no choice is a choice, and what you're choosing to do is harm yourself, unfortunately. So instead of expression, if you aren't expressing your emotions, you can feel repressed, or you can even become depressed. I'm not saying that not expressing your emotions causes depression directly. Okay. People can have chemical imbalances and things of that nature, but oftentimes in humanity, we are putting everything on ourselves. Like, people have to resolve this themselves, but the people in your life who support you and love you, your friends, people in the server that you're, close with, communicating with them and expressing allows that energy to be put in motion, which is going to be better for you to have motion anyway. Academy, you can send me a private message because I was trying to answer your raised hand and it wasn't working. All right, last thing, you stop trying to grow. If you're not putting your energy into motion, this makes you physically stuck. You feel stuck mentally, and you're physically stuck with your trading process, because if you stop trying to grow, you are going to be you won't be making any progress. And sometimes people are so afraid of making the wrong progress that they don't make any at all. But you can actually learn from your mistakes just as much, if not more, as you can from your failures. Start rebranding in your head mistakes as being successful failures, because you learn something from it. So if you never put your energy into motion, you can stop trying to grow. You find yourself repeating the same mistakes over and over again. Or, and this is one of the worst things that your subconscious can do to you, is that things that are familiar to you actually feel good to you. They're comforting because you know what to expect, even if those things are unhealthy for you, such as drinking or drugs or toxic relationships or codependency or addictive behaviors, which you find a lot in people who trade. So unfortunately, when you're choosing to do those things, you're just perpetuating those same cycles, right? So you're limiting your earning potential, but you're also limiting your knowledge potential, which is pretty hard to deal with, right? So on the contrary of that, let's say that we have no problem expressing our emotions, but what we have a problem with is our emotions getting the best of us. And if we have too much energy in motion, you can be suffering from being or feeling under the influence of your emotions. This is things in your life that can happen to you. You can lose your job or lose a bunch of money or have lost a bet or something like that, and you jump into this revenge trading with a feeling that you're going to hurry and make it all back. Or you break up with your girlfriend, she dumps you, and you try to go through and do a bunch of trading to get rich because you're like, she'll want me back if you're rich. I promise you, all of these things, they're not going to work because they're not coming from the right place. They're not coming from an intentional place of healthy mindset, healthy choices. There are some things that you can be experiencing or going through in your life that might be impacting your trading subconsciously, or which means without you being truly aware of it. There are some basic things that you can be going through fundamentally that can be impacting your trading and giving this influence that might not lead you to make the best decisions. So if you haven't eaten, if you haven't slept, right? You're trading under the influence, you're going to get a TUI. If you're intoxicated, if you're stoned, if you're feeling euphoric, those are all influences. Even though they're very different in what you experience, you're still not in a clear frame of mind. If you just went through something traumatic, or if you're experiencing grief or a loss, someone has passed away, something harsh has happened to you in your life, or if you have just more important in IRL, in real life, family matters, friendship matters, things to attend to, you need to be prioritizing those things. Because if you turn to trading as a distraction from feeling those emotions or having those thoughts, you're actually trading under the influence, right? And you aren't trading with a clear head and a stable mind. If you're bored, which means you don't actually think, you feel, or think anything at all, and you're seeking some outlet of excitement or adrenaline, this is why when we 100x things randomly YOLO degen, you're trading under the influence. You're trying to actively get a high from something, or trying to make trading make you feel something. And so that's where the influence can come from there. If you're doing escapism behaviors, or if you're on the reverse side of that, where if you're feeling really, really down, and you're feeling desperate to solve a financial problem, and you're turning to trading with this idealism that it's going to resolve all of your issues, right? So not just trying to escape your issues, but you're turning to trading as the resolution. Let's say you have a child who's sick in the hospital, and rather than take on extra hours at work or work a second job, you're like, I'll just start trading Dogecoin while I'm at my 9 to 5. And you experience this desperation, which whenever you feel desperate for something, things evade you. Okay. Like if you've ever had a dog and you go to chase your dog, what does the dog do? The dog runs away from you. How do you get the dog back? By you running away from it, and then it chases you, right? So if you're coming from this place of mindlessness, or if you're coming from, I saw an Instagram post, I saw a financial guru on Snapchat who's in Bali, who is driving a Lambo, and you want to get rich, you're under the influence of mindsets that are not going to produce a healthy P&L for you. Okay, so don't get caught with a TUI. Your mentors can help hold you accountable for this, or you can even just come and chat and express how you're feeling, and people can help guide you in the right direction. But one thing you should never be doing is trading under the influence. Why? Because if you can't control your emotions, you can't control your money. You have to ask yourself before every single trading session, before you hit that red or green button, you need to ask yourself, am I in control of my emotions, or are my emotions in control of me? Because if you're feeling any of this shit, you need to take a break and step back, because the market isn't going anywhere. Especially crypto, you can literally trade it 24/7. All right. So don't worry. You don't want to have that scarcity mindset that I've got to do it now. Somebody called me up and said, now is the dip to buy on Bitcoin. If you aren't in the right frame of mind, just chill. Other opportunities will come. Trading setups are like buses. All right. If you miss one, or buses or trains, they're right around the corner. All right. Another 7 minutes, something else will be there. All right. So let's relate this back to our emotional state then, because understanding your emotions, if you've ever heard the phrase, somebody is wound up tight, or if you feel tight like a spring, I want you to imagine that these opposite ends of the emotional spectrum are stacked on top of one another, because the middle of these, if they were stacked on top of one another, is where you should be the majority of the time. This is your baseline. You can also think of a numeric scale, like a 0 to 10, or even a -10 to 0 to 10 scale. All right. Because you can relate your emotions to that logical sort of a boundary. When you are trading, you want to be coming from a state of your baseline. So if you're a person who's regularly just content, you're just chilling, you should be right here at about a 6 or a 7. Okay. If you are on either opposite ends of the spectrum, like at the beginning of chat today, somebody said, who was it who said this? Archaeos was like, I'm always switching between crushed and euphoric. And so you've got euphoric up here on the upward spiral of the emotional scale, and you've got just absolute crush down here at the other end. So if your pendulum swinging, that means that what is your P&L going to do? It's going to pendulum swing. Instead of having that steady up curve, equity growth, or a nice little staircase up, you're going to have some up, down, up, down. It's going to look like the VIX. It's going to look like volatility. It's going to look crazy. All right. The reason that these are put on spirals instead of on those logistical ruler size 1, 2, 3, 4 is because sliding, it's like a slide. Once you get to 1, you can spiral out of control. And the only thing that can stop you from spiraling is being cognizant of your emotions in the first place. So the other thing is to recognize that it's harder to climb up a slide than it is to go down a slide. Sorry, I'm playing with the wheel on my on my mouse. I just got a new mouse pad, so yeah, I'm over here just fidgeting. ADHD props. Should I be trading if I'm in my hyperactivity state? No. All right, so with the spiral, think about it like a children's slide. It took more effort to climb up the slide than it did to go down the slide. Okay, so you have euphoria up here, and then you have fear, grief, depression, loss. So everybody, if you've been trading for more than a week has felt the extremes of these emotions. So recognizing that you're the only person who's in charge of your emotions means that you have to hold yourself accountable to recognize when to cut an emotion. If you're bored, if you're chilling and you're like, I might as well trade because my friends aren't getting on League to play with me yet, or you're like, I'm bored, I'm not doing anything tonight, let's just trade. And then you feel a sense of frustration, or like, I don't see any setups that I like, this isn't going the way I thought it would. Then you enter a trade anyway against your better judgment. You feel disappointment. You see how this is starting to be a slippery slope here. Then you're going to be entering things. You might be in the red. You might be close to liquidation or having your stops get hit over and over again. You have to recognize after maybe that boredom and being like, man, I don't see any setups. Cut it. Right? You're the only one. Look at this emotional guidance scale and be like, if I'm feeling pessimistic about the market and I'm feeling frustrated, I shouldn't trade because I can spiral down into these other feelings. Whereas it's the same thing over here. If you are enthusiastic and passionate, you're like, whoo, I love trading. I'm making hand over fist money. I'm about to quit the day job, baby. Let's go full send it. Cut it and let yourself chill and get back to a place of a baseline, right? This is what stop losses are for. We set stop losses to stop ourselves from going down here to the bottom of the spiral, and we set PTs to stop ourselves from spiraling too manically upwards and out of control. So you have PTs and stop losses, and those are your emotional barriers for a trade. Think about it like that way, okay? So the first thing when I'm coaching people who are self-proclaimed not in touch with their emotions, or just, I don't know, I'm just more of a logical, analytical kind of person. What I have to teach them to do first, and what I'm going to teach you guys to do today, is to identify your emotions. So before you become cognizant of what emotions you're actually feeling, your body will likely give you clues to how you're feeling. If you do the constant leg tap, like if you were that kid in class who was just daydreaming, you were leg tapping, you might have been feeling boredom. Or if you're a person who bites your nails, you might be feeling anxiety. Recognize that those behaviors, those emotions are manifesting outside of your body for you to be able to witness them, see them, realize them, and then have the choice or the power to change them if you need to. So after you can recognize what that is, you have to accept that that's what you're feeling, right? Instead of avoiding it, because if we avoid it, we're repressing or suppressing and imploiting on ourselves. Just accept that you feel that way. So if you're over here and you are like looking at your P&L on a trade and you are feeling you're just pissed off, and you're feeling anger, and this because you want to break your monitor like be ridiculous, or like you're clenching your jaw, you're having over here, your heart is racing and you're feeling really, really bad, really hot, your gut turning, stuff like that. Recognize, okay, I feel angry, right? And once you accept that my body is showing me signs that I'm feeling angry, or if you're self-aware enough to recognize I feel anger right now, then you just have to do something to release that. Please don't break your monitor. All right, do something healthy. Go do a workout. Get some therapy putty. I have therapy putty that I play with. It's like silly putty, or like a tennis ball or a baseball, something you can squeeze and like throw around. It's not just anger that you need an outlet for. Every emotion you need an outlet for, because we're like a tree, we're breathing, right? So if you're feeling euphoric, instead of taking those trades where you could be at danger of acting euphorically, right? Spread some of that joy and good vibes to a friend. Call up somebody you haven't talked to in a minute, send somebody a nice message, go, play with your dog if you have one. And then you can actually inverse these states and sort of life hack yourself into feeling a different emotion the way you're feeling as well. So if you get to the point where you're self-aware enough to recognize, I'm feeling lost today, this sucked, like I lost some money, but you stayed within your boundaries and you want to feel and come from an abundant state, because we learned earlier that that's a healthy state to trade in. Do something kind for somebody else by donating some money to charity. Send somebody $20 for a treat yourself coffee or lunch or something sweet like that. If you don't have any money to give and you just lost a bunch of money, get together some extra clothes or things for Goodwill, just give, because that way you actually trick your subconscious into feeling like you have enough to share. And then all of a sudden you're back at your baseline state, because what you're doing is you're compensating from being at this disappointment or loss and then feeling hopeful and optimistic when you share that with somebody else, right? So identify your emotions. If you aren't self-aware, look at what your body's doing. That's going to give you clues. Let yourself feel it, and then don't let it stay with you. Put it out into the world somewhere, process it, or have a healthy outlet. Along with letting your body talk to you, if you are really like, I'm not self-aware, I don't listen to my body, I'm introverted, I'm shy, blah, 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 you have no excuses. All right. I told some people in chat, I was like, I'm not nice during these lessons. I'm going to be the tough love coach. If you need me to tell you things, you need somebody to keep it real with you, I'm going to keep it real with you. So if you're really going to be willing to change or acknowledge some truths about yourself, you have to be willing to look outside of yourself sometimes. So I asked my family and some of my friends, what are some of my annoying mannerisms, or what are some things that you see me constantly doing? One thing my family is so bothered by is that I like to like rock and fidget. I'll like sit like a pretzel in a chair, or I'll like sway back and forth when I stand, when I talk to people. And it's really it's overstimulation, right? And it's just a desire to move. That's like my version of the leg bounce. So I recognize the other thing I did too is I would always play with my hair. Drives people crazy. Like I'll braid it, act like I'm going to put it up and then let it fall. They'll be like, what are you doing? And it's just, that's my way of calming myself. And the reason why you ask your friends or family to mirror back, or your coworkers, whomever, to mirror back your behavior, is so you can recognize that that behavior, that manifestation with your physical body, is a reflection of an emotion that you feel. And if you're doing that behavior all the time, then you're having that emotion all the time. So I didn't realize I was anxious. I was just finding ways to cope. So then what you do is you put your coping mechanism, right, in place to aid with those emotions. So I started keeping hair ties around me. So when I was doing my hair, I could do the coping mechanism and then stop, right? Or I have that therapy putty like I told you guys about. Instead of fidgeting all the time, I'll use the therapy putty. Next, another thing I did was I have a tendency to deflect with humor, right? So when I'm really upset or when I'm really disappointed, I'll just find a way to kind of laugh it off. And that's not really addressing and acknowledging and having the awareness for the feeling of disappointment I was feeling. So in order to flip that habit, like I told you, you can transmute it, inverse it, change it, I would put on a stand-up set in the background, or I'll watch an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm or Always Sunny in the background while I'm watching my stops hit on a trade or something else. So you're having these coping mechanisms or these behavioral interventions that stop you from that slippery slope. Laughter, it helps your body express, right? It's moving the emotion outside of your body. Expression is good. So that was my hack for that one. Last one, remember your basics. Can't possibly be upset when watching Always Sunny. B-roll, I love that you share my sense of humor. Thank you. It is so dark. Sometimes people watch the show and they're like, how are you watching this? Why are you laughing about this? I'm like, just, you get me. You get me. Yeah, so another thing is anybody who knows me knows I'm like the human version of Snorlax. I prioritize food and sleep. So when I'm hangry, I make really impulsive decisions when I trade. Sometimes I'll just be so fed up. I'm like, I can't trade. I got to go eat. Or I'll straight up ignore my trades because I want to go do that. Or I haven't eaten all day because I've been focused. So what you need to do is in that behavioral intervention, one of those could be prepare food, right? The subconscious thing here to understand if you're somebody who does this is, and this is for sleep and eating, is that if you feel full physically, you are more selective about what you choose to take on because your brain feels satisfied. Your physiological experience within your body, whether you've had sleep or have had proper food, it says you have enough. So that's where you're coming from, the abundance mindset. On the flip side of that, if you feel empty, physically, or drained on sleep, you're going to be looking externally for things that fill you up that are not going to be healthy, right? You're going to be looking for another trade. You're going to be drinking Monster energy drinks. You'll be, shopping online to get like a feeling for something, putting in, if you're Hazard the Cat, you're putting in parlays on and do DraftKings and whatever else. So what you need to do is you can ask somebody to be real with you about what your behaviors are if you can't recognize them yourself, because your behaviors that you do frequently are the emotions that you feel frequently. So hack yourself, right? Analyze yourself. Then once you understand what you're doing, you can go into the next stage, which is prevention, right? You want to manage your emotions. I want you to take a moment and think about and be real with yourself about who you are as a person. Okay, identify your neutral, your natural baseline emotional state, what your attitude is. Would you say that you're a person who's positive most of the time or negative most of the time? There are people who exist out there, Grumpy Gus, Scrooge, that their natural baseline state is grouchiness, right? And then there are the people who wake up at 7 a.m. and you see them in the morning, they're like, good morning, hello, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. They act like they've free-based like 60 gallons of coffee. And that's their neutral baseline, but it's different for every person. So remember that everything you do as a trader is a reflection of who you are as a person, and it reflects your state of being. So ask yourself before you trade, let's get real about who I am on a neutral baseline sense. When I'm not trading, are my thoughts and or emotions mostly positive, mostly negative, right? If you weigh your emotions like a scale 50-50 and put both one of your hands out in front of you and one is happy and the other one is unhappy, which one holds more weight to it, right? Is it more happiness or is it unhappiness? Be real with yourself. Next is think about your emotional state like athletes would, right? I want you to start tracking your emotional state like you would track a trade process, pregame, halftime and post-game wrap-ups, because the best players are the ones who watch their footage objectively, right? They're willing to actually look back at your stuff. How many of you, when you were in, elementary school or primary school, and you'd write a paper and then the teacher would be like, okay, it's time to edit and revise. And you did not want to look back at your work. You just wanted to turn that shit in and be done with it. And the best people are going to be the ones who are willing to look themselves in the face or to look back at their work and admit and acknowledge where they can improve, right? If you're not somebody who can do that, that's what teachers and mentors and coaches are for. Other people can help hold you accountable, but you are, at the end of the day, you're the only one pushing that buy or sell button. So you have to learn how to hold yourself accountable, because that's the only way that you can achieve your goals. If you aren't holding yourself accountable and you're letting your accountability be in somebody else's hands, then all of your losses, they're not your losses. You blame them on somebody else. But the flip side of that is all of your wins, you can't claim either because they were somebody else's ideas, right? So if you aren't keeping a trading journal, you need to start keeping a trading journal. I understand that P&L is calculated. I understand that there are records of this stuff already, but what you have to start doing is going through that emotional process so that you can be acknowledging and becoming aware of those behaviors and your frequent patterns, right? So keep that trading journal. If you need to share it with somebody to get some feedback, do that. Have the bravery or courage to do that, right? Because just like I said in here, you have to sometimes ask your friends or family. You can ask your coach. If you don't have a personal mentor, we have many available on CT. You can hit up Birkenstock, and Stefan, if you're in chat too, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, keep a trading journal and have other people hold you accountable, but at the bare minimum, start taking radical accountability for your actions, right? So what I mentioned before was that who you are as a trader is just like who you are as a person. But whenever you're doing something that is extremist or involving like dopamine release, oxytocin release, chemical stuff, it's amplified. Your feelings about things are amplified. That's why trading is so triggering for us. So what I want you to understand is that your journey as a trader is as personal as your journey as in personal growth, right? And what trading is going to do for you is it's going to highlight your strengths and it's going to highlight your weaknesses. So there's 7 dimensions of wellness. if you're thinking about yourself from a holistic perspective. And there are going to be some that you're stronger at and some that you're weaker at. So there's, oh, okay, somebody's tagging me. You lied. I can't hear her sing. Time to get back to T Swift. I'm sorry, El Taido, that I'm not hosting a concert, but check in next week and I will sing you the introduction to the beginning of Emotional Lessons, part duh. Or you can catch the recording. I don't even remember what part I sang. I speak in song a lot of time. Goofball. Encore at the end. If you're lucky. If you're lucky. Jacob, maybe you should okay, I'll hold you to it. I'll sing next time. Okay, so you've got the spiritual, the physical, the emotional, the intellectual, the financial, the social, and the environmental components. So just like some people are going to have strengths in certain areas, there also might be weaknesses in certain areas. And these can change at any given day or any given time. Some people are going to be naturally very intellectually driven. They like to watch documentaries. They're always constantly learning. They're, doing like YouTube academy classes, all those things. Whereas if you look at their environmental space, their desk may look like trash. It might be covered in takeaway boxes and soda cans and empty bottles of water and half-eaten food. And so somebody who's strong in this area might have weaknesses in another. But what you should aim to do in order to be a well-rounded person is to find balance for yourself. Okay, you need to have balance in your life, because if one thing goes really wrong and shitty, then you have other things in your life to compensate and lift you back up. Okay, it's like if you've ever had a bad day at work, but you come home to your family, and your family or your kids are just like, they just lift you up. You do some fun things, silly things, and you feel better. Why? Because all of your eggs weren't in that one basket. You weren't putting everything on your financial plate, right? The other thing is that lifting yourself, a rising tide lifts all boats. So if you're lifting yourself up regularly in other areas, you're working out, you're eating food that's green every once in a while, at least once a day, maybe, please, then you can have a brain that has like the nutrients it needs to be making smart decisions. So what I'm challenging you to do, and that the first question I will be asking you, what foods are green? What do you eat? Get out of here. I love when you guys troll me. It makes me smile and laugh. So eat vegetables, please. Fruits and vegetables. So you can look at this, you can screenshot if you want, but my challenge for you next week is I want you to pick one area where you are really feeling like you're naturally successful, or something that you're good at in this moment. Because before you work on improving yourself, you want to avoid being hypercritical of yourself. Okay, it's really not, that's not a good state of mind to be in. So pick one thing on the wheel, one area. You can drop it in chat if you're brave enough, and say which area you're really already doing well at in your life. Maybe you are practicing your religious beliefs daily, you're doing some meditations, or you're just staying true to yourself. Maybe you are financially freaking slaying it, crypto market, NFTs or something right now. Or maybe you're just a super clean person, but you're feeling hella broke because you can't get your trading style down. Pick that area where you're successful, and then pick just one area. Heidi, I love that. Gratitude is so important. If you can't get into a state of happiness, what you can do on your emotional guidance scale is actually, this is why people say count your blessings. The frequency of gratitude is synonymous with the frequency of happiness. So if you can get to the point of, that's a good way to hack yourself. If you are feeling a little down and depressed, go general about things in your life that you can feel grateful for. So pick one area to focus on improving next week, because next lesson, I'm telling you, the first slide when I open that shit up is like, all right, did you do this? Why or why not? Because you're the only one who has something to lose and something to gain by doing this. Next. Hi, Donna. Happy you could join us. All right, so managing your emotions, part 3, application, right? So you gain the knowledge and then you apply it or else your knowledge is kind of worthless, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to identify our emotions, manage them, be proactive about them, and then apply all this learning to our trading. So your goal as a trader is to be proactive with your emotions and not reactive with your emotions, right? Because proactivity is objectivity. When you're looking at things objectively, you can make the best rational decisions for yourself, and you have the greatest control over your emotions. You also are in a state where you can make healthy decisions easily using less brain power, right? I'm sorry you don't hear any singing. Come by next lesson. All right, number 2, trading purely based on logic is not always realistic. What you hear a lot of coaches say is we need to trade like machines. We need to trade like robots. Remove all of your emotions out of there. Make a plan, execute it. Don't let yourself feel anything. Do you understand how if 40% of your emotional analysis is there in your subconscious, then you are actually legitimately just ignoring 40% of yourself, and you're suppressing and repressing. And then if things don't go according to your plan logistically, you're going to blame your logic when really you should be blaming your emotional state. So the realistic approach to something, the actual ironic thing is that the most logical approach to trading is to understand and incorporate your emotions. At least at the bare minimum, be self-aware of them. Because what you can do if you can become self-aware and identify, like we said, and manage, the trick is that you can actually use your emotions to your advantage by using them as an indicator for what you should do in your trade. When we talk about trading indicators in our fundamental lessons, we share that all indicators are lagging. That is why we try to read price action and not use the indicators. Your emotions are not lagging. Your emotions are happening in the moment. So if you can get yourself to a place where you can recognize your emotions, you can then bypass that emotional state, express it, do what needs to be done with your trade, and then be done with it and let it go. A couple things are going to happen when you do that. 1, your P&L is going to increase because 2, you're happier when you trade. 3, you maintain your passion for trading because you aren't stuck in a constant cycle of self-sabotage and doubt and fear and worry. And the third thing is that your other areas of your life are going to improve, because if your trading day is 9:30 to 4, or you trade crypto for 3 hours between your jobs, being a truck driver or whatever, I don't know, you're having your emotions come to you and you're letting them go. You're having them come to you and letting them go. You're breathing in the carbon dioxide, you're putting out oxygen, right? You're letting it be in that moment and then leaving it. It's like when people say they leave work at work, leave trading at trading, right? Use your emotions as indicators, right? Last, it's important to remember that you should be keeping your energy in motion, not just in trading, but in life, because if you come to a trading session with a bunch of repressed emotion, you are already stagnant, and there's a strong possibility that you could be trading under the influence. So this is what we say when we mean be water, because water is, first of all, it can transition states very easily, solid, liquid, and gas, right? But water is fluid, and it can come up against hard surfaces like rocks and things like that, and it can break through the cracks, it can lift them up. Water is actually incredibly strong, just like as it is flexible. So a fluid state of mind, you're approaching a trading session free of bias, right? You're going to be willing to accept what the market is giving you. You're going to be able to use your emotions as indicators and let them come and go. It's like when you learn how to surf, you just got to ride the wave, and then the wave ends and you're done with it. The other thing is that it helps you avoid spiraling. So I talked to you about how to use your stop loss and your price targets as barriers for your emotions so you don't spiral out of control, right? If you are water, you should be at your baseline most of the time, and then a nice wave tide, like a wave pool, a little bit up, maybe a little bit down, but mostly around your baseline, not pendulum swinging from euphoria to fear and devastation, right? Nas came for your serenading state for managing your emotions. I need to learn how to manage my emotions with you, Naz. You break my heart. Heidi, I love what you said about gratitude. Thank you so much. Jacob baited the Naz. That's difficult to do these days. He's a hard man to get a hold of. All right, cool. So let emotion, remember what the word emotion means, energy in motion, right? Let it come and let it go, right? If it's like the dog, don't go chasing it. Don't go with a desperate energy. Nothing likes that. It's never going to work for you. Do something about the way you're feeling. or you will be stagnant. Express, don't repress or depress, not just in trading, but in life. All right, so what we can do here, we have about 15 minutes. I'll just want you to think about some times that your emotions might have given you cues and give you some scenarios so that when these come up in your trading in the next week, you can address them yourself. So an example is you're an intermediately skilled trader in a Discord server. An analyst posts a signal, and when you read their signal, your eyebrows raise. There's that body movement, right? Your eyebrows go up and you feel surprised. When you look at the chart, post along with the signal, you feel uncertainty. If using your emotions as an indicator, would you take the trade? Well, if my body is saying I feel surprised and I'm feeling uncertain, maybe off the bat, if you have to say yes or no, probably say no. But if you're going to put that energy of surprise and uncertainty into motion instead of just ignoring it and letting it pass, what would be the healthiest way to address it? Are you going to ape in? You're just going to full send, eat YOLO, which is your financial sector of your wellness, right? Are you going to take the ticker that they shared and go chart it yourself and try and make your own trade plan? That's, coming at it from a logical and intellectual perspective. Or maybe you're the kind of person who's going to slide in somebody's DMs about it or go in the server and ask main chat about it. Social things. What I want you to think about over the next course of the week is, okay, I see what Amy said about my emotions, right? I'm responding and I feel it and I can tell whether or not I should or shouldn't do something. But then what you've also got to learn about yourself is which area of wellness is your go-to box that you live in. Where's your chill spot? Where are you mostly operating out of? Because you need to find balance, right? Sorry, I can't delete my bad word in here. Figures, typical Jacob. Bad folk. If you want to learn about tidying and gratitude, I would recommend Marie Kondo's book. I've never seen a single episode of Marie Kondo, but I already know I love her. Does this item spark joy? If not, get rid of it, donate it, whatever. She's my spirit animal. Any one of my friends know I'm hella OCD about my environment. That's where I live in most. That's my state is because your physical the manifestation of your environment, the cleanliness, like I was talking about with the desk space, is a reflection of your headspace. So if your headspace, if your mental is cluttered, then your physical environmental space will be cluttered. So when you can't go through and sort through your emotions or your thoughts, first and foremost, what you can do is look externally to your environment and try to organize things physically. This is why after those days, when your parents would be like, clean your room, when you were growing up, you'd clean everything. You'd feel so pumped about how good your room looked, and you do the thing where you walk outside and look in to see what it looks like to somebody else. Then you'd get the shower, the clean jammies, and you'd just be feeling so good. And that's, if you can't address those thoughts, right? If you can't release that emotion, do something physical, right? This is why we're looking at these states of being. Thank you for the book recommendation, by the way. So another one. I don't want to do that one. Okay. Let's go to this. You are an experienced trader in a leveraged Bitcoin long who trades from home full time. You tap your foot as you anxiously await movement from Bitcoin, which seems to be just kind of consolidating, ranging sideways, right? After a few hours of slouching around in your chair, you begin to feel impatient and bored. So you start playing a game on your other monitor with Binance on or whatever, your FTX in the background, right? You get so lost in the game that you feel apathetic as to whether or not the trade brings profit or gets stopped out. How can you put the energy of anxiety, impatience, and boredom into motion in a productive and healthy way? If you're using your emotions as an indicator, would you or should you stay in this trade? Anxiety, impatience, and boredom. Anxiety, impatience, and boredom. If we go back to our spiral, anxiety, impatience, and boredom. Boredom is a bad place to be in. Impatience is a bad place to be in. Anxiety isn't put out here, but it is down here towards the bottom, right? So if you are feeling anxious and bored and you're already playing another game anyway, where's your stop loss? You have to have stops on your emotions like you do on your trade. You got to figure that out, all right? So if you're in that leveraged Bitcoin long, you're feeling these ways, maybe you shouldn't be trading at this moment. Maybe you shouldn't be trading with leverage, right? Here's the most important part of this lesson, and something we'll work on further and further lessons, because this is meant to be an intro lesson. It's almost like an overview of the fundamentals of everything we go through specifically. So just like you have your own set of trading rules, or at least you should have a logic-based list of trading rules that you have already developed for yourself, you should also be reflecting on what you're putting in your trading journals and those frequent emotions or behaviors that you come across in your trading. And you need to start developing your own set of emotional trading rules. So what you can start with is in analyzing what you did in the past that helped you. When you felt this way in the past, what did you do? Did that help you or harm you? What would you like to do moving forward? If you were losing in a trade, did you go grab a drink? Or if you were losing in a trade, did you pick up the free weight that's chilling in your room where you're trading and getting a little lift, while you were watching yourself, while you were watching something go the wrong way against you, right? I want you to create rules or lists of things that you do that you should be doing when you feel a certain way, right? So you can screenshot mine as some examples, but yours are going to be more specific to you, because you're going to start to recognize the emotions that you feel most frequently in your trading. And the one that you feel most frequently is the first one that you need to put an intervention in place for. So if you're feeling euphoric, then you should at least be taking partial profit, right? You should have your stop loss in profit. You should be de-risking or risk off completely in a trade. If you're seeking vengeance, you're revenge trading. Obviously, you should recognize I'm under the influence. I should not be in anything right now. Doesn't hurt to close some positions, log off, come back another day. If you are feeling incompetent, even if you're an experienced trader, there are days where you just feel like I'm just, like doing awful today. Transmute that energy into that feeling of gratitude, like Heidi was talking about, and go read a book, go learn a new skill. It doesn't have to be trading related. You can, if you're a well-balanced person, you can also say, all right, so my financial side sucked today because I lost $100, $200, whatever the case may be, but I'm going to go pick up my guitar. Or like me, I have a ukulele and I can't play guitar because I have tiny hands and I can't reach around to the frets. So I got a ukulele. It was a gift for me so I could start learning how to do that. And when you start learning a new skill, your brain goes into a different kind of wave. There are alpha waves, different waves in your brains we'll cover in this lesson, or in further lessons, but that can actually put you into a better, healthier state of mind, so that when you return to whatever was making you feel incompetent, you feel more ready to face it. Right? If you feel confused, a good thing to do is to invert your chart. If you feel confused or biased, that's a great thing to do. You can go do some other task. The guy in the Enigma Code, if you watch that movie with Benedict Cumberbatch, when he was feeling frustrated and couldn't crack codes, he would go for a run and his answers would come to him when he went for the run. So I would suggest that you do those menial tasks like doing the dishes, taking a shower, just tidying things up, because that's when some answers can come to you when you're not really expecting it. Okay. Or some other things you can do are, over here, some of my things, one of my feelings was I noticed that I would be overwhelmed very easily in my trading, especially when I was first starting off. So one thing I like to do is have insanely loud music that helps, output some of my emotions for me. I liked to limit my positions. And I did put this with my emotional trading rules in addition to my logic-based trading rules. I don't do just 3 anymore, but I do still only do max 5. I know there are other people who have 10 or 100 position opens if they have a bot or things like that. But what you're gonna you have to find what works for you. Remember, trading is a personal experience, right? The other thing is that when you start to build your emotional trading rules, you're going to also notice some of your outlets that aren't healthy. Like one of my outlets that I do is I love to shop. I live to shop. So I noticed that I would be spending a ton of money when I was trading to make myself feel better, or to in that euphoric state, I'd be like, oh, well, I just made, $2,000. What's $100 for that one thing I was wanting? But really, then that's messing with my R&R, right? So you'll start to notice these things about yourself. Nobody's perfect, and what works for one other person might not work for you. So the takeaways from this lesson, the main things I want you to know and understand or remember are that emotions are energy in motion. So when that emotion comes to you, Find an outlet for it. Please don't hold on to it or put it down. Act like it's a game of hot potato. As soon as you get it, you want to be able to go, okay, what am I going to do about this? And release it, because that's going to feel good for you and it's going to be healthy for you, which will mean that your trading, your decision making is also healthy. If you don't control your emotions, they will control you. If you can't control your emotions, you can't control your money, right? No TUIs. I don't want to be coming into chat and playing, Mrs. Officer, like Lil Wayne style. No, I don't want anybody trading while they're under the influence or trading while they're impaired emotionally or otherwise, all right? I want you to maintain a neutral, peaceful, liquid state to trade from. Whatever your balance is, whatever your baseline is, find that. Start becoming self-aware of your frequent behaviors. Turn to people if you need them to hold up the mirror for you so you can see your strengths and weaknesses. Have that athlete's mentality, right? Accept yourself as you are and define your goals to improve. The only way to improve is to admit that there are areas for improvement, identify which ones are needed most, and then attack them. Also utilizing your strengths the most, right? There is a healthy outlet or emotion to take, regardless of whether the emotion you're feeling is at the bottom of that emotional guidance scale or the top. There's always a healthy outlet for it. I want you to understand that. So please don't do anything that are permanent solutions to temporary problems, right? I want you to understand that there are people who are out here to support you, help hold you accountable, but that literally any emotion you're feeling, you can always find yourself a way to get back to your baseline because you have the power over your emotions. They don't have control over you, right? Last but not least, if you get really good at this, or if you're a person who's super self-aware, I want you to start to develop your own personal emotional indicators. I showed you the emotional trading rules. If you print those out, like you print out or have your own trading rules posted somewhere, then you're going to have no excuse not to follow them, because you're just going to have to identify your emotion on this scale. And we'll be making our personal scales later in the series. But the more in touch you are with your instincts and your emotion and your intuition, the easier everything is going to become for you, right? Just make this a skill to practice, just like you put in time for charting, just like you put in time for alpha. I want you to put in time for your emotions, because that's going to be just as important of producing, a well-rounded trader as it is a well-rounded human being. All right. So publish these rules, put them somewhere, at least start making them and considering them, and hold yourself accountable. Any questions before I leave? I got to bounce. I've got a lesson over on the X-Trade side, but you can drop any questions in chat. I hope everybody enjoyed this. I hope I wasn't too harsh on anybody. Every time I do this lesson, people tell me it feels like a personal attack. I'm not, necessarily happy with that, but at least we're keeping it real. I'm crying right now. Good. So identify the emotion you're feeling, which could be sadness, right? What could you do? Send your friend A Mizzle some crypto. I'll send you the wallet Addy. That's a good way to release the sadness, Jacob. Or you can do some retail therapy, You could, how about you do some charity tomorrow, Jacob? I think that would be really good for you. All right, I'm trolling. Arcus, need to leave. I sent it. Thank you. Already doing to control emotions. I don't trade alone. I always double check the setup with a friend. Okay, so double-edged sword to doing that, because remember that coach or that accountability partner is really good. But once you can feel like you're at a place where you can take full ownership of that, then you can also be fully functioning as definitely an autonomous trader. But I'm happy you found what works for you, especially if that friend can be unbiased. We'll cover a lesson that goes over how to check your biases exclusively. We'll go through what every bias is so that you understand why your brain acts the way you do. And unfortunately, sometimes we learned that even our coaches sometimes can have those bias. If you're looking for a personal mentor, remember that there's mentorship available through Crypto Traders, so you can drop those requests in chat. But otherwise, y'all, I got to bounce. Have a good night. Thank you everyone for coming.